Alright, well the first video lesson that I gave you was kind of an overview, general overview of what we're going to be doing in Unit 4 and also in Lesson 4.1. The next one is going to be very specific and detailed in how we're going to use all this information as far as the definitions of our trig functions on the previous video. So this one will go real quickly. All we got to do is apply that working knowledge that we were given at the beginning of the lesson. So it says find the exact values of the 6 trigonometric functions of theta. Now, something that you always want to keep in mind, we've got a right triangle here, so with right triangle trigonometry, we can use all of our SOHCAHTOA information and Pythagorean theorem ideas. This is pretty straightforward and simple. All he wants to do is identify the sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent identity or definitions. So first thing you do is I identify the angle that I'm working with. Here's our sine of a theta. Theta is the angle that's in question. So if we look through the eyes of theta, this 5 is the side that is opposite the angle. The 12 is the side that is adjacent to the angle. And 13, of course, is the side opposite from the right angle, so that's your hypotenuse. So we can quickly fill out each of these ideas if we know our basic knowledge, and that is the sine of theta is always asking for the opposite side length, which is 5, divided by the hypotenuse length, which is 13. So that's the exact value for the sine of the angle theta. The second one, the cosine of theta, then, by definition, cosine of theta is the adjacent length, which is 12, over the hypotenuse's length, which is 13. I'm done with that one. The tangent is simply the opposite over the adjacent length, so that is 5 over, opposite over adjacent, which is 5 over 12. The cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine, so if you already know the sine, then the cosecant can be the reciprocal, or if you want to memorize it as it's the hypotenuse over the opposite, you can go back to your triangle and look at your hypotenuse. Your hypotenuse has a length of 13, and your opposite side has a length of 5. But when you look at these two values should be reciprocals of each other, because that's the way a cosecant function is defined. It is the reciprocal of the cosine. So same for the sine. Same idea for the cosine and secant. The secant is the reciprocal of the cosine, so I can just simply write it's 13 over 12. And if you think about your definition, it is always the hypotenuse over the adjacent leg. So if you go back up to your triangle and you apply those ideas, hypotenuse is 13 and the adjacent leg is 12. And finally, the cotangent is the reciprocal of the tangent, so that is 12 divided by 5. And again, if we apply the definition of the cotangent, then that better be the adjacent side over the opposite side. And go back to our triangle, and that's exactly what we have. The adjacent side is a length of 12, and the opposite side is 5. So this type of problem is just trying to get you to use your definitions of the 6 trig functions, get comfortable with them, and apply those so that becomes part of your working knowledge. Got one more example of this in 1b. Always try to identify, first of all, I know it's a right triangle, so my right triangle trig functions work. Here's theta. This side is the side that is opposite the angle theta. The side that's opposite the right angle is your hypotenuse, and it also has to be your longest. And the other side then is your adjacent. Adjacent means next to the angle that you're dealing with, so next to the theta is the side that has a length of 20, and then opposite and hypotenuse. So quickly running through our 6 trig ratios, the sine of this angle of theta, opposite is 21 over 29. That's our hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's 20 over 29. The tangent is 21 over 20, opposite over adjacent. The cosecant is simply the reciprocal of the sine, which is 29 over 21. It's kind of nice to have that memorized. It's also nice to remember it's always the hypotenuse over the opposite side. The secant is always the hypotenuse, which is 29, over the adjacent side, which is 20. And we can see that they're reciprocals. And the cotangent is always the adjacent side, which is 20, divided by the opposite side, which is 21. Also the reciprocal of tangent. So just a quick introductory section on using your trig definitions.